What if the very companies suing an AI company for stealing their characters are secretly using the exact same kind of AI behind closed doors? What if the lawsuit meant to protect Mickey Mouse, Superman, and Bugs Bunny ends up exposing something Hollywood never wanted the public to see? Somewhere in a federal courtroom in Los Angeles, a legal fight that started as a simple copyright case has quietly turned into something much bigger. It is no longer just about whether an AI image generator copied cartoon characters. It has become a question about who in Hollywood is telling the truth about artificial intelligence and who might be hiding something. Disney, Universal, Warner Brothers Discovery, three of the most powerful entertainment companies on the planet, standing in front of a judge, being asked to hand over their own secrets. And the company forcing their hand is the very one they are trying to destroy in court. This is the story of Midjourney versus Hollywood, a legal battle that could decide how every AI company on Earth is allowed to build its technology. And it could also expose exactly how much of Hollywood's own future already depends on the same kind of AI it is suing to shut down. Before we go further, if you care about how AI, Hollywood, and the law are colliding right now, hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you do not miss the next update on this case, because this story is moving fast and the next ruling could change everything. Let's rewind to where this all began. It was June of 2025. Disney and Universal, two of the biggest names in entertainment, filed a lawsuit against a company called Midjourney. Midjourney is one of the most popular AI image generators in the world, the kind of tool where you type a few words and it produces a fully rendered image in seconds. The problem, according to Disney and Universal, was what people could generate with it. Their lawyers said users could type in almost anything and get back near perfect images of characters that belong entirely to these studios. Bart Simpson, Homer Simpson, Darth Vader, Elsa from Frozen. These were not vague, inspired by sketches. According to the complaint, they looked like the real thing, generated instantly, without any license, without any payment, and without any permission at all. Disney's lawyers did not hold back in describing what they believed was happening. Their filing described Midjourney as an endless source of copyright violations, a system that could produce infringing content essentially without limit, over and over again, character after character. It was a serious accusation, and it set the tone for everything that followed. Then, a few months later, in September of 2025, Warner Brothers Discovery joined the fight. This was a major escalation. Now, it was not two studios but three, and Warner Brothers brought its own list of characters into the case, most notably Superman and Bugs Bunny, two of the most valuable and recognizable characters in the history of animation and film. Suddenly, Midjourney was not facing one lawsuit from two companies. It was facing a coordinated legal assault from three of the largest media conglomerates in the world, all pointing at the same product and making a similar argument, that Midjourney had trained its AI on their copyrighted material without consent, and that its output was proof of that theft. Now here is where the financial stakes become almost impossible to ignore. Under copyright law, a company found guilty of willful infringement can be forced to pay damages for every single infringing work, and in serious cases those damages can reach up to $150,000 per work. Think about what that means in the context of an AI image generator. If a court determines that even a fraction of the images Midjourney's users have generated over the years count as infringing copies of these studios' characters, the number of individual violations could run into the tens of thousands, possibly more. Multiply that by a maximum penalty of $150,000 each, and you are looking at a number so large it could bankrupt the company entirely. This is not an exaggeration. Legal experts who have covered the case have pointed out that if the studios win big on damages, Midjourney is not just facing a fine, it could be facing the kind of judgment that ends a company. So Midjourney, understandably, needed a strong defense. And its lawyers built that defense around a legal concept most people have never heard of outside of a courtroom, something called fair use. In American copyright law, fair use is a defense that allows the use of copyrighted material without permission under certain conditions, often tied to things like transformation, commentary, or the broader public interest. Midjourney's argument, in simple terms, is that training an AI model on publicly available images, even ones that include copyrighted characters, should be treated as a transformative use protected under fair use, not as straightforward piracy. But here is where the story takes its most interesting turn, the twist that has made this case a headline again just this week. Midjourney's legal team did not just want to defend itself. It went on the attack. And the target of that attack was the very idea that only Midjourney is using copyrighted material to train artificial intelligence. Midjourney's lawyers began arguing that if the studios themselves are quietly training their own AI systems using unlicensed copyrighted material, maybe for storyboarding a movie, maybe for early concept art, maybe for internal creative development, then the entire foundation of their lawsuit becomes shaky. Because if Disney, Universal, and Warner Brothers are doing exactly the kind of thing they are suing Midjourney for doing, just privately instead of publicly, then Midjourney's lawyers say that is powerful evidence. It would suggest that using AI trained on unlicensed content is not some unusual, malicious act unique to Midjourney. It would be, in their words, standard practice across the entertainment industry itself. This legal strategy has an actual name. It is called an unclean hands defense. The basic idea behind it is old and almost intuitive, even if you have never studied law. It means that if the person suing you is doing the same questionable thing they are accusing you of, they lose some of their moral and legal standing to punish you for it. Midjourney's attorney, a lawyer named Bobby Gajar, put it plainly in a recent court filing. He argued that if the plaintiffs, meaning Disney, Universal, and Warner Brothers, are engaged in the very practice they are trying to punish Midjourney for, then that fact goes directly to the heart of Midjourney's defense, both on fair use and on the unclean hands argument. So what exactly is Midjourney asking for? This is where the demands get remarkably specific and remarkably broad. Midjourney wants access to the studio's internal AI business plans. It wants their research reports on artificial intelligence. It wants their training datasets, the actual pools of data used to teach any internal AI models they may have built. It wants what are called model weights, which are essentially the mathematical core of how an AI model actually functions, considered by many companies to be among their most closely guarded trade secrets. Midjourney also wants documents connected to how AI has been used in the actual production of movies and television shows. And on top of all of that, Midjourney is asking for the studio's own board presentations, the internal slides and materials that executives use when discussing AI strategy behind closed doors with their leadership teams. Perhaps most strikingly, Midjourney is also demanding every single prompt the studios themselves have used on Midjourney's own platform, along with every image that came out of those prompts, not just the specific prompts connected to the allegedly infringing images at the center of the lawsuit, but essentially the studio's entire usage history. Naturally, the studios do not want to hand any of this over. And back in the middle of June, they got a partial win. A magistrate judge named Joel Richlin ruled on this exact discovery dispute, and his decision favored the studios, at least for the moment. Judge Richlin decided that the studios would only be required to disclose information about what he called their consumer-facing AI applications, meaning tools that regular members of the public can actually use and see, not internal systems used quietly behind the scenes. He ruled that Midjourney's broader demands for internal AI development information were not relevant to the central legal question in the case, which is simply whether Midjourney infringed on the studio's copyrights in the first place. For a moment, it looked like the studios had successfully protected their internal AI operations from public exposure. But Midjourney was not willing to accept that outcome quietly. This past week, Midjourney's legal team filed a new motion, this time asking a different judge, Judge John Kronstadt, to overturn Richlin's ruling entirely. Midjourney's argument is that the earlier decision creates an unfair, one-sided playing field in the courtroom. According to legal reporting on the filing, Midjourney's lawyers argue that the current limitation allows the studios to selectively hand over only the documents that support their own claims about market harm, while blocking Midjourney from getting the documents that could support its own defense. In plain language, Midjourney is saying you cannot pick and choose what evidence comes out just because it is convenient for your side of the case. Of course, the studios are pushing back hard, and their argument is worth understanding clearly because it is not weak. The studio's lead attorney, a lawyer named David Singer, has publicly dismissed Midjourney's discovery demands as what he calls a fishing expedition, essentially accusing Midjourney of trying to distract the court and delay the case rather than actually defend itself on the merits. Singer has made the point that the studios are not trying to stop artificial intelligence as a technology, and they are not even trying to shut down Midjourney's business entirely. Instead, Singer argues that their goal is much narrower and much simpler than Midjourney is portraying it. They simply want Midjourney to stop generating, distributing, and displaying unauthorized copies of their famous characters, the same basic right that any copyright holder, in any industry, would have the ability to enforce against any infringer, whether that infringer happens to be powered by artificial intelligence or not. So now you have two very different stories being told in the same courtroom. Midjourney says, you cannot punish us for something that may be industry standard practice, and we deserve the right to prove that. The studios say, this is not about the industry, this is about protecting our specific characters from being copied without our permission, and everything else is a distraction. Why does this particular discovery fight matter so much, beyond the individual case? Because this is arguably the first truly major legal collision between traditional Hollywood and the modern generative AI industry, and the outcome will not stay contained to just Midjourney. Similar copyright lawsuits are already underway or being watched closely involving other major AI companies, and the way courts handle discovery in this case, meaning what evidence gets forced out into the open and what stays hidden, could set a powerful precedent for every AI copyright case that follows. If the studios succeed in keeping their internal AI development completely sealed off from public view, they get to define the public narrative around generative AI and copyright without ever having to reveal whether their own hands are just as involved in similar practices. But if Midjourney succeeds in forcing that information into the open, it could reveal a genuinely uncomfortable truth for Hollywood, that the same industry publicly warning about the dangers of unlicensed AI training may be relying on very similar tools internally, just without the public spotlight. As of right now, this case remains active in the Central District of California, sitting in front of Judge John Kronstadt, and Midjourney's motion to overturn the earlier discovery limits has not yet been decided. That decision, whenever it comes, could dramatically reshape what evidence both sides are allowed to use going forward, and it could shift the entire balance of power in this lawsuit. It might also influence how courts across the country handle the growing wave of copyright cases involving generative AI companies more broadly. So here is where we are left. A legal fight that began as Hollywood accusing an AI company of building a machine for mass copyright theft has evolved into something far messier and far more revealing. Midjourney is betting that exposing Hollywood's own quiet relationship with AI will either force a settlement or dramatically weaken the studio's case in front of a jury. The studios are betting that they can keep their internal AI strategies private while still winning damages that could put Midjourney out of business entirely. Whichever way Judge Kronstadt rules on this discovery motion, one thing is already clear. This is no longer a simple story about one company copying cartoon characters. It has become a test case for the entire entertainment industry's honesty about its own relationship with artificial intelligence, and the next ruling in this courtroom could set the rules for how every studio, every AI company, and every court in the country handles this kind of fight for years to come. If you want to stay updated the moment Judge Kronstadt makes his decision, make sure you are subscribed with notifications turned on, because when this ruling drops, we will be breaking it down here